Hi. Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good. The headphones aren't working. Can you hear me okay?
I can. I
Good.
can. Yes, so don't worry about headphones, I guess, if that's okay with that.
Yeah, I think it
Yeah.
is. Let's just try and
Okay.
move me down a bit. Oh, very
So,
good.
welcome everyone to Going Conscious. This is a weekly series where I interview inspiring people who are on their own journeys to living a more conscious life. And I'm really happy to have Richard here today. So, he has been on his own journey from corporate real estate to men's fitness modeling to then finding his path with combining psychotherapy and breathwork. So I'm really excited hearing more about that. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here, although I am having nervous technical moments as I try and adjust my tripod to get my head in the shot without the headphones. Maybe I'll just sit on a yoga block. It's easier to move
Good,
me
it's good
than to
practice.
yeah. There we go. Oh, I'm a bit more upright now. Ah, good. Well, thank you, Nikki. Yes, thank you for that lovely intro. Lovely to be here.
Great. Are you comfortable?
Yeah, you're comfortable enough for now. How about you?
Okay, good. I'm great. Thank you.
Good.
So, Richard, tell us a little bit more about your journey from corporate real estate and men's fitness modeling through to what you're doing today, combining psychotherapy and breath work.
Yeah, so I started following the path of the family. Children often follow the path of their fathers. My father was a chartered surveyor. He was in commercial real estate. Me and my brother did exactly the same thing, thinking, don't know what better to do, so we'll just go into that. I thought that I would be happy doing that. At the same time, I thought being a fitness model and getting into men's health would be the ultimate goal for me. I thought I'll be happy once I'm in men's health. I'll get all the girls. Men will never challenge me because they'll have seen how muscular my body is and I won't be threatened and life will just be fine and then I'll live happily ever after. But shockingly, that didn't happen. What actually happened was I was really let down after the highs of being in the magazine and achieving that goal. I felt really empty. I felt, what is life about if it's not about success? So around that same time, also my dad died. I broke up with an ex-girlfriend, and I turned to addiction for support. I didn't know what to do with life because if life isn't about success and whatever success means to you, what is it about? So yeah, I turned to sugar and food and binge eating disorder. And being a fitness model with binge eating disorder is an extra challenge. And what that did do for me was make me a pretty knowledgeable about fat loss and things like that. But at the same time, I realised that it wasn't going to make me happy. So I quit the real estate. I quit the fitness modelling. I started training as a life coach, and then I discovered psychotherapy and breath work, and then non-ordinary states of consciousness with the breath work and with ayahuasca and plant medicines. And so I moved from material success to just trying to be, well, yeah, happy, basically. And certainly the way I thought I was going to be happy in life was not how I think about it now.
Okay, what a journey. Thank you. So you describe how if life's not about success, then what is it about? And how you have this realization that material success didn't bring you happiness you thought it would. So how has that changed for you then, your view of what success means?
Yeah, I actually heard someone talking about the Russian philosophy, how they kind of laugh at the Western pursuit of happiness, and how in America it's in their constitution, like we have the right to pursue happiness. And the Russians are like, yeah, happiness is a nice byproduct of actually a life that has meaning. So now I'm focusing
Mm-hmm.
much more on what brings me meaning, what gets me out of bed. I don't get out of bed be like, where's happiness? What am I going to do to find happiness? I go and do something that's meaningful to me, which is breath work and healing and things like that. And then I'm happy when I'm I have
Mm.
meaning.
Okay, so for you, it's about that more that Russian philosophy of following a life of meaning, and that's where you then find the happiness ultimately as a result of that, as a byproduct.
Yeah, and I think I've studied a lot of existential psychotherapy and like Jean-Paul Sartre and Merleau-Ponty and things like that, and they all started out super nihilistic, a pretty depressing
Mm.
view of the world. But Jean-Paul Sartre, what people don't realize, towards the end of his life, he was actually went back on a lot of the stuff about life has no meaning and things like that. He was actually, yeah, life may or may not have meaning, but if you are here, you may as well find meaning in helping others and contributing to society and finding meaning in building something that is constructive for something outside of yourself.
Mm. Okay, so meaning in helping others or something that's outside of yourself. How does that apply to the journey you've taken then?
So I think I was very selfish, self-absorbed as a younger person, and being an addict and going through the 12 steps in Overeaters Anonymous. The first thing they do is tell you how selfish and how self-absorbed you are, and to realize that was really powerful for me. It was hard, really brutally hard
Mm.
to hear, like, you are really selfish, you are really self-absorbed, you need to go out and do something outside of yourself. But it was true. When I was in binge eating episodes or whatever, nothing could have gotten in my way. I've stolen food from friends, from family. I've lied. I've just a horrible, horrible person when I was under the mist of addiction, and coming out to help other people now through breath work, through one-to-one healing, and doing groups and things like that, and featuring on podcasts and speaking about my journey. I find meaning in that because it makes me think, well, I suffered for a reason. I suffered so that I can help other people come out of suffering.
Mm. Mm-hmm. You suffered to help so you can help other people come out of suffering.
Yeah, I'd like to think that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so how do you work with psychotherapy and breathwork to help other people come out of suffering?
Yeah, so I've studied holistic counselling, I've studied life coaching, I've studied postgraduate certificate in psychotherapy, and I've also studied various different modalities of breath work, soma breath work, clarity breath work, and transformational breath work.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I felt a little bit disappointed with talk therapy, with your classic psychotherapy. I got a lot from my relationship with my therapist when I first started, but both me and him concluded that there's got to be more, there's got to be a better way than just talking to someone. And there was quite a good analogy in this Netflix documentary called The Last Shaman. And in that,
Mm-hmm.
it's a Harvard student who has mental health issues, depression, goes down to the jungle, does ayahuasca, and his father is like a high-powered psychiatrist, and his father gets sort of the top advice from the American psychiatrists and neurologists and things, and he basically says, before antibiotics, doctors were effectively just going to people's bedsides and holding their hands. They couldn't really do much apart from provide them with placebo effect, love, which is of course very powerful. But it wasn't until antibiotics there they actually got really powerful medicines, and they were really able to stop deaths in its tracks. And we've seen that with
Mm-hmm.
the increasing death rate. Then what happened with antidepressants in the 60s or something like that, whenever they were invented, psychiatrists thought, oh great, now we've got medicines like other doctors have. Great, we can actually do some proper help. But of course, so antidepressant medications haven't been as effective as they would have liked them to be, because we've realized it's not just a chemical imbalance. Maybe that's in there, but that's not the whole story. And so basically what they're saying is psychiatry, psychotherapy is pretty much in this hand-holding phase, and it isn't until we start including things like breath work, ayahuasca, psilocybin, and MDMA assisted psychotherapies that we may actually start to get some real changes in people's progressions out of depression, and mental health issues. And the studies They died on psilocybin mushrooms. If anyone's read Michael Pollan's book, it's a great one. They're getting like 70% remission rates in treatment-resistant depression, 70% remission rates in treatment-resistant PTSD, and compared to normal antidepressants, which don't have any improved statistics over a placebo. So yeah, I really think the future of psychotherapy and mental health includes breathwork and psychedelic assisted psychotherapies.
Okay, interesting stuff. So how are you taking your practice then of psychotherapy and breathwork into approaching this huge topic around mental health?
Yeah, so what I would do is I'd have a one-to-one with someone. We do a 90-minute session. I start with a little bit of therapy, you know, building rapport. I have a bit of training in somatic experiencing type work where you're working with the body, getting people to feel sensations. Then we go into like a 45-minute breath ceremony, and then, you know, they set an intention. Maybe it's, you know, I want more clarity. I want to get over this traumatic experience. I want to connect with my guides or spirits or something like that. And yeah, they lie down. I guide them through a breathwork session. They go into this non-ordinary state of consciousness. They heal at the nervous system level. They heal at the subconscious level and the spiritual level. And then we come back at the end for a little bit of integration. So that's what a session would look like with me.
Okay. And for people who haven't tried breathwork yet, how does breathwork approach these issues that people have and help them with their healing?
So Stanislav Grof is the originator of this. He did a lot of research with LSD in the 60s. He's a Czech-American psychiatrist, and he was working in the Esalen Institute, getting these amazing results with LSD-assisted therapies. Then, of course, it was made illegal. So he discovered this breathwork technique called holotropic breathwork. And what he found was he could put people into similar states of non-ordinary consciousness and help people to heal in a similar way to an LSD session or an ayahuasca session. And yeah, basically what that does is it switches off that thinking mind. It turns off the default mode network of the brain that tells you who you think you are, and allows you to go into the subconscious, into the nervous system, and into parts that you just can't get to with things like CBT or just regular talk therapy. It's not too dissimilar from hypnosis as well. So it's going down into our programming, into our computer programming, and seeing what's in there that needs to be removed. And I work a lot with trauma, and what happens with trauma and our fight or flight system is we're going along in our rest and digest, our parasympathetic nervous system, then a traumatic event or an activating event like a tiger is attacking you, your boss is attacking you, a bully is attacking you, go into sympathetic fight or flight, and then you escape from that, and then you come back into the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest. But what happens, because we have this prefrontal cortex, we block that process from happening, so we get stuck in the sympathetic. We get stuck in the fight or flight, and then we can't rest, and then we can't relax, and then we can't digest, and then we put on belly fat, and then we can't sleep, and then we get anxiety and depression. The whole system breaks down. And what breathwork does is activates the sympathetic nervous system again, but enables that process just to be completed. So maybe you reimagine an old event, maybe running away from a tiger in your childhood, but it wasn't fully processed in the breath work. You would reimagine that, but you would just complete the process, and because it's super easy. And what normally happens is you can watch it, someone will start trembling around their stomach, and then it'll come up, and then they'll yawn it out, or they'll cry it out, or they'll their body will start shaking, and then they'll just let it go. And it's a bit like, there's the analogy of when you have that traumatic event, what happens is you stop breathing, and then you file away that emotion to be processed at a later date, because you don't want to be processing emotions when you're running away from tigers. So what the breath work does is allows you to go back into a really safe and relaxed, calm environment, open up that filing cabinet and see if anything wants to be reprocessed, see if anything wants to be completed. And another analogy I like for it is if you have your Google Chrome or your Safari, every time you open a new tab, you know, you've got loads of tabs by the end of the day. And that's a bit like what we're doing with every time there's a traumatic event, like, you know, the first time a girl rejects you. In my case, I had to process that in a breathwork session. That is a tab open. And over the course of your lifetime, maybe you get 25,000 open tabs. And what breathwork can do, it just help you go in, just go, right, closing that one down, closing that one down, closing that one down. And it takes away some of that sort of, you know, CPU processing power.
Mm. Wow, so it's a really deep level reprogramming of your traumatic events and helping you to smooth out what's happened in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just a tool, you know, it's like a hammer. A hammer can be used to build a house. It can also be used for violence. And you can also be hammering in a nail and smash your thumb. With any powerful thing, you need to be really careful with it. So it is best to go with, you know, an experienced facilitator, because when you're using something so powerful, you don't want to reach. My Instagram told me I've been on for too long already today, so I had to get rid of my notifications.
Oh, really? You have like a management thing there to stop you looking at Instagram too much.
Yeah, I have 15 minutes and I've gone over my allotment for the day.
Oh, I see.
Mm.
That's good. 15 minutes isn't too long, but sorry, I'm keeping you here longer today.
What was I saying? I was saying, yeah, it's a tool. So you can use it to you know, connect with guides.
And it's a tool you can use in different ways. You know, you can use it for good, you can use it not for good.
Yeah, I mean, athletes can use it for, maybe I work with CrossFitters, and doing something like a clean and jerk, which is really technical. They can go in and be like, how do I improve my clean and jerk technique? And I know a lot of them, they get these insights. Oh, I just need to move my body just slightly earlier. I just need to pivot my hips slightly earlier. And they're getting these realizations whilst in this kind of theta brainwave, non-ordinary state of consciousness in a very relaxed environment. So it really can be used for so many things.
Wow. What other things do people use breathwork for that are a bit more unusual?
I've used it for deciding on what house to buy, like these kind of big life decisions. Like, you know, when you get so many things, you know, people say, oh, I want to connect with my gut, but, you know, sometimes my mind gets too involved. You can get those gut feelings from breath work. And a lot of times, you know, spiritual things, people want to connect with guides. I had a client the other day who had a psilocybin mushroom journey a while ago, and he met like a witch doctor, and he was like, that witch doctor came into my breathwork session again, it was so weird, you won't believe it. And I was like, I totally believe it. Yeah, I invited guides in for this session, and yeah, it sounds like he is one of your spirit guides, and he is someone who comes in to support you. And as another thing that happened on one of my breathwork journeys recently, I got this insight, or this image of us humans. We are down on the football pitch or the soccer pitch, and all our guides, our ancestors, spirits, angels and things, they're in the stadium just cheering us on, like screaming, shouting for us, and you're like, go on, breathe through it, yeah, cry through that childhood trauma. And yeah, I just got this sense of we have so much support that we're not aware of it, but it's there for us whenever we want to access it.
Yeah, amazing. I love that about the different levels of support that are there for us. I've certainly experienced that myself with holotropic breathing and connecting with my grandma and nature in ways that I couldn't have imagined without that tool. Yeah. So I'm wondering, what's it like for you being the breathwork facilitator and bringing this type of healing to people?
Yeah, I think it's really rewarding. Like I said, it gives me meaning. It makes me feel like I am doing my part and helping upgrade human consciousness. And that's kind of this mission that I've taken on. When I was doing ayahuasca last year, I kind of had this conversation with, I don't know who, some people in a galaxy far, far away, but they're basically here they basically said, you're here to help upgrade human consciousness. And I imagine you're here for that too, Nikki. And I kind of got the idea that we come from different places, you know, we come from different like planets, organisms or something like that, but we're sent down here to this platform of Earth for different purposes. You know, some people are just down here to play the game, to have fun. Some people are down here to be the bad guys, and because, you know, that's quite fun as well. And some people are here to, you know, change the software. And I got the idea that me, my Natalia, my partner, people like you are here to change the software in humanity, to upgrade it. And one of the ways they wanted me to do that, I don't like saying it like that, like I'm special or anything. One of the ways I realized I could do that is with working with people's trauma, because the way I see it is trauma is like a sandbag on a hot air balloon. We can upgrade our consciousness, but we have all these traumas that are weighing us down, and until we let go of these traumas, let go of these sandbags, we're just going to keep staying down here, basically. So yeah, in terms of how it is for me being a breathwork facilitator, I think it's very important for people to realize that I'm not really doing anything. It's the breathwork that is doing the healing. It is them that is doing the healing, and my mentor is called his app is called Breath Guru, and it's not that he is the guru. He's very clear. It's the breath is the guru. He's just Alan Dolan. The breath is the one that is helping people through, and it's helping people to realize that they have this innate healing within them. It's not like I have like healing powers, like I'm, you know, a Jedi or anything like that. It's very important that I let people realize that they are the ones who can heal themselves, and I think that is that's what's happening with biohacking as well. You know, I'm a biohacker, self-professed. It's giving people the power to heal back in their own hands, because I feel like our medical system, whilst it's done a fabulous job with trauma and things like that, it does take away power from a lot of people. And you can't go on Instagram and say, oh, you know, if you take this, you'll never get the coronavirus or things like that. That's good. And, you know, maybe we shouldn't be injecting ourselves with disinfectant and things like that. But the system makes you feel a little bit helpless a lot of the time. And with biohacking and N=1 health, it was basically putting the power back into people's hands and realizing the power of their own innate healing ability, their own Wolverine-like healing stuff. And yeah, I think that's what it's important for me as well, doing mental health, because I think, again, diagnosing someone with a mental health issue, I think it can be counterproductive. Whilst when I first got diagnosed with anxiety and depression, I was like, oh, great, see, finally people are taking me seriously. Because for years it was just like, oh, I'm really, really struggling, please help me, family, friends. I didn't get the help I wanted. And it was only when I attempted suicide, basically. It was only when I attempted suicide that I got the care and attention that I was really crying out for. And that suicide attempt was probably a cry for help. And that diagnosis of anxiety and depression, like, it was like, oh, okay, Rich has actually got some problems, let's support him. But then conversely, I think there's an issue with diagnosing someone with something that doesn't necessarily exist. It's not like the malaria virus where you can cut open someone's arm and go, oh, look, there's depression, there's addiction, there's PTSD. It has no etymology, so it's not. I don't think it can be called a disease. And this is, I'm talking a lot about Tom Saz's work. I think with addiction as well, you are told you are powerless. And I think with depression and anxiety like that, when you take away someone's power, it takes away their power to heal. And I think that's why psychedelics assisted psychotherapy and breath assisted psychotherapy can be a really useful tool, because it's making people realize you have the power to change your life.
That's beautiful. So when someone is experiencing breath work, how do they actually experience that sense that they can heal themselves and that they can take back some of that control?
Mm. So with the breath work, it's a mouth breath, and basically you start to take in more oxygen, and what that does is provide more. Yogis would call it prana, quantum physicists would call it electromagnetic energy. You start to experience more energy going through the body, and that can be tingling sensations, that can be hot and cold, it can be changing in your temperature, it can feel like champagne bubbles running through your blood. It's some quite nice sensations. And what happens is, you're sending the breath to parts of the body that don't necessarily get attention on your day-to-day process. So there's a great book by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk called The Body Keeps the Score, and he's a psychiatrist, and he talks about how trauma is in the nervous system. It's not in the mind, it's not in the story, it's held in the nervous system. And what I mentioned earlier about completing some of those processes, the parasympathetic, sympathetic waves, what breathwork does is goes into the parts of the body and moves the stuckness out of those parts of the body. And normally when people finish the end of the session, they'll say something like, where did I go? Like, where was I? How long was I there for? And a lot of the time the answer is, I don't know. You probably your mind went somewhere else so that your body could heal, so your nervous system could heal. And I guess for a lot of people who have done meditation and think like, oh, I can't meditate, it doesn't work for me, breath work is a great alternative, because it's active at the start. There is a specific technique that I coach people through. There is something for their mind to think about, and eventually after 10 minutes the mind just goes. A lot of the time it just relaxes. It's not so intent on controlling everything, so that some real deep level healing can happen. And I think people are very surprised at the end of it. If you go on my website, on my Instagram, a lot of the time you'll just see testimonials of people they just think, wow, at the end of it. I did a YouTube channel with this guy, and I filmed him at the end. He just sat up and just said, wow. It's just, go, I cannot believe that I have just done that just with the breath work. So it's making people realize that it's in them a lot of the time. It's there. It's a natural process that you can just switch on whenever you want, as long as you're in the right environment and things. And so that is what's happening. And coming back to your question about how do you make people realize that it's them, I think a lot of the time and my ego and my narcissistic supplies love to be like, hear like, oh wow, you're great, like, I don't know what you did, and I have to rest on my ego, and I'll be like, oh, I didn't actually do anything, it was all you. And make sure that people really do realize that it is them that is healing, and it's them that has the power to continue that journey.
Amazing. That's what I love about coaching as well, just helping people to realize how much wisdom and healing power they have within themselves. And I remember before I had tried breathwork myself, it's really hard to understand how you can really go to such a completely different place and experience this other reality. And it's something I guess you just have to do and just have to try it.
Absolutely.
So going back to your own journey, was there one key moment for you that stuck in your mind where you decided to walk down this path towards living a more conscious and meaningful life?
Yeah, well, I would have to say that that suicide attempt was a pretty big turnaround at the time, and it was a strange tale, if you like. I was very depressed, I was binge eating, I was in a job I didn't like, I had a girlfriend, and we were quite new together at the time, and I was staying up late on my own drinking, and I basically decided, right, I'm going to kill myself. Started tying up a noose and was going to hang myself from my balcony. And for some reason, this was like 3 a.m, she'd be asleep for 4 hours already. She just walked in as I was tying the noose up. I had no idea why. I was pretty quiet, but she just walked in, saw what was happening, and yeah, big, big, you know, we both started crying and things. But that for me was like, not only do I have a girlfriend who loves me enough to help me, but surely the universe or guides or something, someone woke her up at that exact moment to come in and support me at that time. Before, I was very materialistic, I was very scientific, I was, you know, I had no belief in anything outside of myself. Like I mentioned, I was very self-absorbed. And so I guess from that point on, I've realized that my life, the way I'm doing it, is not working. My belief in nothing but my own self is not working. And I realized that I'm going to have to start exploring other ways of living. And those other ways of living were starting psychotherapy, meditation, breath work, believing in a higher power. And yeah, I think ever since then, it's just been more and more confirmations of, yeah, there's something going on other than, you know, what's just happening in my mind. And you know, with ayahuasca and things like that, you get such a strong sense of your insignificance, and in a kind of nice way, but like just how big things are, how big the universe is, how big society is, and how much more important those things are than your own selfish desires to eat as much cake as you can in one night or something. So
yeah. Wow. And as you then moved down this path towards meaning and explored all of these different ways of connecting with your spirituality, how did you know that breath work was the right path for you to choose? Like, how, you know, when you know you want to live with more meaning, how do you know, or what are you listening to?
So I would go back to my first breathwork session with my mentor, the breath guru. I'd done probably a few years of psychotherapy, a few years of like groups like the Hoffman process and the Path of Love.
Of training, you mean?
No, just being a
Psychotherapy
participant.
training or being a participant?
Being a participant. And I'd done life coaching. I was a life coach,
Yeah.
focusing more on career and fat loss and health and nutrition. I studied nutrition at Westminster Uni at the same time, so I thought that was going to be something I wanted to help people with. But yeah, when I did my first breathwork session, I just couldn't believe it. I got up off the couch and I immediately text Natalia, my girlfriend. I was like, I booked you in for tomorrow. Like, this is unbelievable. Why doesn't everyone know about this? It was just, you know, it's so powerful. There are no contraindications. You can do it every day. And I was just blown away by it. And yeah, I did quite a few more sessions with Alan. And then I was studying the masters in psychotherapy, and Natalia was like, I think breath work is it. You know, psychotherapy is great that you get that intellectual knowledge, but nothing seems to come close that is illegal at the moment to breath work. So we trained with him, and I can see actually Breath with James, another breath worker, is watching right now. He was a fellow mentee of Alan Dolan. And we did this year-long mentorship with him. It was very nice. It was like there was only 5 of us, and yeah, Breath with James is doing great work as well. He's doing a lot of Instagram lives as well, and we all have gotten so much from the breathwork training.
Okay, amazing. And so you've talked about your breathwork mentor. Is there anybody else who's been a key inspiration for you on this journey?
Yeah, there's a guy called Raffia Morgan. He's one of the co-founders of the Path of Love. And the Path of Love is this kind of psycho-spiritual retreat. It's like a week-long retreat. And completely life-changing. I volunteer with them sometimes now, and I assist sometimes, and I've done their training. I did a year-long training in holistic counselling with Raffia and Turia, who are the 2 founders of the process. And yeah, he's just a really amazing therapist, basically, and he's just so in tune with people, and he's helped me so much. But now that I'm in the role of counsellor therapist, in sometimes just watching him work with people is just,
Mm.
it's art. He is so attuned. He can see through so many things and knows exactly what people need.
Mm.
And he's also doing quite a lot of work with Rebel Wisdom. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they
No.
kind of a media platform. They're doing quite a lot of big stuff, like
Mm-hmm.
with therapy and men's work and things like that. And I've also done
Okay.
a retreat with him last year called Tantra Mantra, where he basically he was leading a kind of tantra couples workshop with Deva Premal and Mitten. I don't know if you know them, but they're
Mm-hmm.
like mantra singers. They've won Grammys and things like that. And yeah, he's just I guess a mentor to me, but at the same time someone I really aspire to be like.
Mm. Okay. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing all that. As we're coming to the end of our time, my last question for you is just around if you have a key book that you can share that's been really important for you.
Yeah, I think Lost Connections by Johann Hari. I think it's such an important one. If mental health is something on your radar, depression and addiction, to get the kind of environmental perspective is so valuable, because we've had the greatest minds in the world looking to isolate genes for depression or hereditary issues or chemical imbalances or genetics or inheritance or DNA or things like that, and no one
Mm-hmm.
has been able to say, right, well, we'll cure addiction and depression with this. I think it's because we're not looking enough at the environment, and Johann Hari goes very much into society's influence on depression, from
Mm.
our lack of connection to each other, our lack of connection to nature, our lack of connection to meaningful work, our lack of connection to ourselves and to our trauma. And I just love the way he tells stories throughout this book, and how there's just a different approach to mental health than the one we're doing. And I'll quickly share a story from that of how he was visiting Cambodia or doing research, and heard the story of a rice farmer who'd had his legs blown off by a landmine and was basically really depressed. And the people in the doctors tried to give him antidepressants because they'd just become popular in Cambodia. And he said, no, I don't want it. I'm not going to take it. Because basically what happened was the people in the local community came together, listened to his problems, heard that he was in a lot of pain trying to tend his rice paddies. And so because he was in so much pain, he was depressed. And so they gathered together and bought him a cow. And so that meant that he could sell the cow's milk and he could live off the cow without having to walk around all the time. And it was the combination of the community coming together, buying him a cow, listening to his problems, and that was his antidepressant. It wasn't just a pill to change his brain chemistry.
Yeah.
It was
Mm.
all these factors coming together, and that's kind of what they do on the path of love, and as well with ayahuasca retreats. It's group healing.
Mm-hmm.
The power of the group is what really adds such an extra dimension to therapy and to healing from mental health issues.
Absolutely. The power of the group. Wow, that sounds like an amazing book. I'll post this video on IGTV, so if you could comment with the name of the book and the author, that would be amazing. I'd definitely like to get a copy. I'm sure some other people would as well. So, wow, thank you, Richard. We've talked about a lot. We've gone deep, from suicide to transforming life and going into how we can heal trauma. And alternative states and ways of dealing with mental health issues. It's been fascinating for me, and hopefully for our listeners. What is your key takeaway? Is there something you want to share as we end our chat?
I think, yeah, my key takeaway with this time of coronavirus is the importance of community, is the importance of those things for our mental health. Just knowing someone thinks about you or cares about you. I would just really encourage people to socialize as much as is legally practicable, and really invest time in other people and in